Parents, parents of teenage kids, adolescents. Have you noticed subtle changes in your child? Um, and maybe you're writing it off to growing up and going through puberty. Maybe they're standoffish or irritable. They don't want to be around you, whereas they did. And you're thinking, oh, my kid's growing up and they don't want to be around their parents anymore. Maybe their grades are slipping. They're being a lot more social. They're out all the time, right? They don't come home for dinner. When you ask them questions, they're really irritable. That sounds like normal teenage stuff. Um, I don't think it's that normal. I think it was normal for me because I'm an addict and I was displaying addict behavior. Uh, I kept getting in trouble. Not everybody gets in trouble like I do, but consequences are usually where you see um, the addict come out, right? Have there been consequences? Just any kind of consequences, just bad things happening. Bad things happening. Susie, maybe you smell some pot, right? You can tell that she's been dabbling with some pot, or you can smell some alcohol on her once in a while, right? Uh, and maybe she tries to stay away from you when she comes home because she doesn't want you to smell that. She goes in the side door, right? Or she comes home late, doesn't come home for dinner, that type of stuff, right? Then maybe a party gets busted, right? And her name comes up. And so you know that she went to the party, so she got in trouble, maybe just by you, right? So she gets grounded. But then as soon as she's ungrounded, or maybe she was sneaks out of being grounded, right? And she goes back out, and you still smell the pot, and you still smell the alcohol, and you can tell that she's messed up when you see her. Maybe she gets in trouble at school. Maybe her grades are dropping, right? Maybe she was an A or a B student, and now she's a C student, right? Um, you never see her doing homework, right? Her interests have changed. Maybe she doesn't go to French club anymore. Maybe she's not involved in the school plays anymore or sports. Um, you know, her friends have changed. Those kind of things, right? That's not just symptoms of growing up, okay? Those are red flags. And, you know, once addicts and alcoholics are introduced to the world of drugs and alcohol, it's really hard to pull us away because all of our friends are doing it. They're just not having the same consequences. And when they do have consequences, they stop, and it's not a problem, right? And we don't understand it because we have no idea what we're getting into. And I say this all the time, but a potato doesn't choose to be a French fry or vodka, right? It just is. And that's the same thing with humans. 13% of us are alcoholics and addicts. That's 1 in 8, right? So when Susie got past that beer or that joint, it triggered an allergy, which was the onset of the disease of addiction. Some people turn it down and they're lucky and they never get into it, or maybe they don't get into it until their 30s or something. But most people are introduced to it around middle school, high school age, and then it's 30 years of misery for most people. For me, it was right. I mean, I'm in my 40s and I'm just now having a clear head, and it took my significant other to die, and then 2 more months I had to lose my truck. I had to lose all options. It was either die or get help, and that was my bottom. But it doesn't have to be like that. A bottom can be getting arrested one time or getting busted at a party, right? Seeing that addiction is in your physiology, right? Our brains are wired differently. When, most people don't even like opiates. Most people go when they get their teeth pulled or whatever, get their wisdom teeth pulled. They'll get a prescription for, say, hydrocodone, a 3-day prescription, and they'll take it for one day and then leave it in the cabinet. You know who eats them? You know who gets them? People like me, right? We'll get in your medicine cabinet, we'll take them, and we'll eat them, or we'll sell them and buy some better drugs that we want, right? And that's just the truth. Most people do not like opiates. Um, it's it's a strange thing, and it's hard to explain, and science is trying to explain it, but I mean you really can't, and it's not a scientific fix. If there was a pill that cured addiction, you know what I would do? I would say, what would two of them do? I mean, that's just how we work. That's how our minds work. So there's There's no medical fix for it, right? Now, there's a spiritual fix for it, and it's the 12 steps, and it's working a program, and it's community, right? And it's community with people that support you. And usually that is, in fact, almost always, it's one addict helping another or one alcoholic helping another, and that's how we get out of ourselves, and that's how we overcome this, right? Is by living selfless, spiritual lives. And a lot of people can do that anyway. They can just live that way, and they don't need to go through a program to do this. But usually not in the case of addicts and alcoholics, because we make drugs and alcohol our god, and it comes first before anything. And your kids may love you, but they're going to put drugs and alcohol first, and they won't even realize they're doing it. Not until they're way deep in it. Now, so my bottom was my wife dying, and then me losing my truck and being homeless. Right, that's a pretty low bottom. I mean, and I've had several bottoms. Like I went to prison, several times. I lost my family. My mom and dad passed away, and my siblings didn't want anything to do with me, right? And I continued to go. I lost my son because I kept going to prison. And all of those things are horrible things that most people would be like, whoa, and they would change, right? And then people will say, well, why don't you just stop? Or why can't you just be happy? Just stop drinking. Just stop using drugs. And to them, it's a no-brainer. It doesn't make sense that I would keep doing this. And there's a story about a jaywalker in the big book of AA, and it talks about, a guy, he likes to skip in front of cars, and that's what he gets a little bit of fun out of, right? And he has a few years of luck, and then all of a sudden, he gets clipped by a car, right? Gets hurt a little bit. But it's not that big a deal to him, it's just whatever, so he keeps doing it. The next thing you know, he gets hit hard, and he breaks his arm, right? Goes to the hospital, and he's like, whoa, and his family's like, what the hell, man? What are you doing? And so he swears it off. He says, man, I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. That's crazy, right? But then as soon as he gets out of the hospital, he does it again. And this time he gets hit and breaks his leg. Now he's in the hospital for, a couple months because, he's in traction. He broke his leg and is in bad shape, right? And then he swears it off, and his wife's like, you're crazy. And everybody around the community is like, what's wrong with you? Why do you keep doing that? And he's like, I swear I'm never going to do it again. I'll never do it again. I mean, that's just nuts. Why would I do that, right? And then as soon as he gets out, a trolley car hits him, and he breaks his back, right? And his wife divorces him. He loses everything, right? And he eventually gets well, and he goes out and does it again. That sounds insane, doesn't it? I mean, who would do that? But if you substitute the word drugs or alcohol for that, that's what I did to my life. And, I'm not crazy, and I'm not stupid by any means. I just have my brain wired differently, and I wasn't willing to accept the solution. Right? And there is a solution. It's in the 12 steps. It's a 12-step program. And you got to work, and you got to work on yourself, And it's really simple, really. Dr. Bob, he was one of the founders. He was a doctor, and he wrote a prescription on a prescription pad. He said, trust God, clean house, and help others, right? And God doesn't have to be a sky daddy. He doesn't have to be anything in the religious books. It has to be your conception of God. So it's really easy for anyone to seek. It's not, we try not to alienate anyone from the program that is seeking. But anyway, the bottom doesn't have to be that low. A bottom can be going to a party and getting busted and getting in trouble with mom and dad, and then going back out and getting in trouble at another party because you couldn't stop doing what you were doing that got you in trouble. And that right there is a red flag, and that should be enough to make you understand that you're in for a lifetime of misery if you don't get help. If you don't make an effort and just concede that you've got that addict mentality. You are 1 in 8. You're an elite class, right? 1 in 8 people are lucky enough to have a solution in life, because most people have no idea how to deal with their problems. But people in 12-step programs, we do, right? We can use the 12 steps for any problem we have. We practice these principles in all of our affairs, right? And this is how we get better whenever there's any problems in our lives, right? And we use this as a way of life. Right? And so this is actually a good thing. It's a good thing. Most people don't get this opportunity. Now, there are sober schools right now. There's a Hope Academy here in Indianapolis, and Fairbanks is its founder, I believe. It used to be at Fairbanks, and now it's downtown. But there's a stigma attached to it, right? And I'm trying to change that. That's what I'm trying to do with the Molly Moe Foundation. And this is going to be a labor of love. It's going to take some time. I'm just trying to get some attention, right? I'm trying to get the word out of what I'm trying to do. And maybe I can get some help, and maybe you can speed up the process if we can get some funding, because I can't do it on my own. I mean, it's probably going to cost $10 million to build a school, and I don't have $10 million, right? But I'm going to put my own money into it through the business that I help run, and through my own income I make through that, right? I'm gonna siphon off a percentage of what I make and a percentage of our revenues and put that in there, and I'm gonna try to work with the finances and make it make money. And I'm gonna start a GoFundMe page. I mean, I haven't even registered this business with the state yet, right? So I can't even open up an account yet. This is brand new, right? But this is birthed by the death of Molly Johnson, and she came from a good family. And I came from a good family. I'm from Zionsville, Indiana. She's from the east side. I don't know exactly where, maybe Lawrence area. I know she went to Cathedral and Bishop Chatard. Those are private schools. I mean, her family had money. The rest of her family are, they're well balanced. They're put together well. They have good lives, and they can have a glass of wine and set it down, right? They can probably smoke a joint or something and set it down. And you, parents I'm talking to, you may have the same thing. You may even be able to go out and do a line of cocaine or something and set it down. I can't. For me, one is too many and a thousand is never enough. And once I get started, I'm done. I mean, it destroys my life. And if you have a child, so I came from a family of 4. And both my brothers and my sister, they all drink. They don't drink to excess, right? They get drunk when they drink, I assume, right? And, my little brother, I know he smoked pot. I don't know if he still does. But they didn't have the problems I did. They never got in trouble. None of them. Me, I got in trouble. I got busted when I was 16. And then I got on probation the first time when I was 18. And I was on probation in Marion County, Indianapolis, right? And back then, Marion County Jail was no joke. Like, I only had to go there for like a few hours. My parents bonded me out. But from what I hear, if you could make it in Marion County Jail back in the day, you could have made it in any prison in the United States. And that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot. So that's what I was facing, was a year in jail if I were to violate my probation. And yet I couldn't stop smoking pot. And then what I tried to do was, I heard that cocaine got out of your system faster than pot. And so I was hanging out with friends who went down to the hood, and there was people with crack. And so we rolled up in Primos because it was just a little bit of pot. And so my logic was that it would get out of my system faster, and then at least I wouldn't be smoking pot all day, every day, and I could still get high with my friends. Well, and then I saw somebody smoking a crack pipe, and I was like, man, I would never do that. Oh my God, I would never do that. 3 weeks later, I was smoking a crack pipe. And that was just a progression. And then I got really bad on that, and then I was able to stop on my own. And so I thought it was okay. But I wasn't. I was still smoking pot. Every month when I went to probation, I would put on a sweater. I'd bring a book. I'd put on some glasses. I didn't even wear glasses. I'd put on glasses. I had long hair. I'd put it in a ponytail. And I would just try to look like a nerd. I'd try to look like some schoolboy nerd so that they would think that I was just some, I was just some kid that's getting ready to go to college or whatever, which I wasn't, right? I wasn't planning on going to college. Even though, everybody in my family did. I didn't care because I was doing drugs, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to party. That was first for me, right? But, I went in there and I gave them my meeting sheet, which I would forge the signatures half the time, right? It was only 1 week, or I would go there and I would just, get a cup of coffee, turn on my meeting sheet, and then go outside and smoke cigarettes, and never learn anything about it because of the stigma. I didn't want to be an addict. They told me to say I was an addict, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm an addict, but I didn't believe it, and that made me anti, right? And so the thing about it is, they didn't teach me in the IOP I went to, in the rehab. Sure, when I went to the rehab, because I, of course, got drunk and high at my brother's wedding, and my parents told on me, and so they put me inpatient for 2 weeks. And we went to a few meetings, but, still, I was drinking coffee, and I was talking to the people I was in rehab with. I wasn't listening. I didn't really want anything to do with it, right? But I did find camaraderie in rehab. That's one thing. I did find some friends in there. But when I got out, we relapsed together because it wasn't like a community and it wasn't continual, right? And so this is what the Molly Moe Foundation is trying to do. Is I'm trying to build schools where everyone in the school is in recovery, right? And even if your bottom is you got busted at a party and then you went back to another party after you got in trouble with your parents and you displayed these addict tendencies, right? Because if we don't nip it in the bud, right, and we don't put people in a positive community, It's not stigmatized because listen, I'm not talking about a school where people get expelled from their regular school and they go to night school at this, you know, druggy academy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about schools for especially gifted students. I'm talking about X-Men 10X, right? I'm talking about a regular high school that's got all the trappings of any other high school. It's got sports, it's got arts, it's got theater, right? It's got a pool, right? An Olympic-sized pool. It's got everything any other place would have. Baseball field, football field, teams. But it's only got 1,000 students, like my high school was, with 30 students in the class, and the teachers knew us, right? And all the students knew each other. And, that makes for a community, right? And that makes for where, there can be mentorship and people can really get a good education, right? Not, 50 or 60 students in a class and everything is just, too much for the teachers to pay attention to. We don't need, metal detectors at our schools, right? We're not going to be, that's not going to be it. We're going to have, it's going to be like a community of people that care about each other. And that's what I'm trying to build. And then, of course, we're going to have Greek organizations, so there will be a place for them to go to college, a safe space for them to live, right? And then we're also going to have communities that we build so that people can have, from the first red flag till death do us part, right? We want we want your kids to have a chance at life, right? I mean, I look at people that I went to high school with, that I was, competitive in classes with, and, we were equally talented and able, right? Got same grades, and, I was smarter than a lot of these guys, and a lot of them are CEOs of big companies now. They have good lives, houses, kids, a couple cars, they've got the American dream, right? And here I am, 45 years old, and I have my house, right? I mean, I've got a big dream. I've got big plans. I'm capable. I mean, I own a business, right? But, I mean, I'm an exception, right? A lot of people who go through this stuff, they don't have that, right? Or they had it and they lost it, and they're trying to get it back, and they continually lose it because there's no community. There's no resources. You go to the hospital for detox, they kick you out in 3 to 5 days and say good luck. Right? There's nothing there, and society doesn't look at it like it's a disease. They look at it like a moral failing, like you're a degenerate, like you don't have any willpower. Why can't you just stop? It's not that easy, right? But there is a solution. So I'm trying to make this like a private school type of situation, like a college prep type of situation. Like this is better. I want to make this to be a better educational situation than the one that the kids are currently in. At least as good as what they're in, if not better, right? So this is a step up. I want it to be a lucky thing if you're the 1 in 8 that happens to be an addict or an alcoholic and gets this opportunity. And I'd like this to be a worldwide thing, but I had to start small, So anyway, I'm just trying to get this out here. This is my idea. And I'm hoping that I can get some exposure so that, people can start to see that this is a problem that needs to be handled. I mean, why should one kid out of every 4-kid family, why should one kid go to the gutters, right? I mean, it's like the lottery, like that book, The Lottery, where, they all take a piece of paper, and then the one that has the dot on it, the whole town stones them, right? So why do I have to be the one that got stoned, right? For what? For some magical thing so that the crops grow? Right? I'm the sacrificial lamb? No, that's BS. You shouldn't have to give up your kids. Molly's family shouldn't have had to give up Molly, right? My family shouldn't have had to give up me. And, it's time that we redeem ourselves as a society. We call ourselves an enlightened society, and yet this is how we treat 1 in 8 of us as if they're just degenerates because they have an allergy to drugs and alcohol that triggers a disease, that tells you you don't have a disease, and tortures you every day until it kills you, or until it puts you in a jail or an institution. Not cool, society. Not cool. We need to make some changes. We need to do better. We shut the world down for a disease, for a virus that kills elderly people with comorbidities at a rate of 1% of the population. Right? 75% of the people that died from COVID were over 65 years old. And according to all these new findings is that, they may have been in hospice before they even got diagnosed with COVID. And in the last second, they said, oh, yeah, you have COVID. while they were already going to die today, and then they said it was a COVID death. And we shut the world down over that. Now, I'm not trying to be political about all this stuff. I'm just saying 12% out of those 13% die an average of 29 years early. That's about 48 years old. So if I can't keep myself together here in 3 years, statistically, I'm going to die. Only 1 in 100 people, I guess, what? So what is 15% of addicts and alcoholics make it, which is, 15% of the 13% means that 1% out of 100% of people, when 13% of those are addicts, 1% of those make it, right? So with an 88% survival rate of the human race, when you incorporate drugs and alcohol into it, I mean, 12%. The Spanish flu was a horrible pandemic, and it killed 5.9% of the world's population. But drugs and alcohol kills 12%, and we do nothing about it. We got to start at the beginning, because people die. Fentanyl is the #1 killer of 18 to 45-year-olds in America right now. 841,000 people died between 2019 and now. In 2022, well, 2021, because it's just beginning 2022 right now, 841,000 people died in 3 years of drug overdoses. 95,000 people per year die of alcohol abuse and alcoholism. We got to do better.